Alright everyone, lace up your gloves and take a few practice swings. It's time for us to haul out our resident punching bag, the so-called king of the flat earthers, Eric Dubay. He has once again decided to take a shot at the Apollo missions, and as usual, he's going to do it very poorly. Let's play Nostradamus for a moment, shall we? I predict some comments about the visible flimsiness of the lunar module, something about how you can't pick up a phone and dial MOON like Nixon did, and maybe some radiation nonsense. We'll see how I did. Actually, I'll admit I've done a little digging beforehand, and Eric is actually going to throw in a number of generic flat earth arguments that really don't have anything to do with the moon landings, but they'll need responding to anyway. With that in mind, let me introduce a friend of mine who's going to help me out in our latest entanglement with the Nazi yoga instructor. Ladies and gentlemen, the sarcastic barman. You may remember him from such educational videos as "No, that's not how that works, you knobhead," and "Fuck you for making me do math to prove you wrong." Barman, how are you doing today?
Oh, this will not do. I was promised a trailer all to myself, and instead I'm sharing with a fucking head in the jar. This is not what I signed up for. Oh shit, we're live. Yes, hello Kevin, yes, oh crap. I'm a man with the blood. The blood is the push as much as I can. I can lead his way until the fall of a final die. I'm a man with the blood. The blood is the push as much as I can. I can lead his way until the fall of a final die. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the sarcastic barman, and a big shout out and thank you to Kevin for inviting me onto the channel to deal with this, how should we put it, dumb fuckery of ignorance and stupidity that can only be a result from a flat earth education, or just lack of education, shall we say. And I will have to ask him, and I really hope you've got far more rum in that van, because I'm gonna need lots and lots of rum to deal with this shite. But I suppose it's your video, we'll let you carry on.
Well everyone, are we ready to proceed? Drop your cocks and grab your socks, let's do this thing.
Between 1969 to 1972, NASA, the American National Aeronautics and Space Administration, allegedly flew 6 successful manned missions to the moon, where they did everything from playing golf to speeding around in a dune buggy to receiving a live phone call from President Nixon. In reality, when examined in depth with a critical eye, however, these staged events are found to be nothing but a monumental hoax perpetrated on a gullible and unsuspecting public. 1. To begin with, the moon itself is simply a luminary, a non-physical light in the sky, and not a spherical terra firma planetoid as maintained by NASA and modern astronomy.
Except it's not a luminary, and all you need to do is look at it with a telescope to see that. Check this out, Eric. Shadows in the craters of the moon. How can a light source have shadows on it?
On clear days, you can see for yourself, during a waxing or waning cycle, the blue sky through the moon.
You're kidding, right? That's the blue sky in front of the moon. I mean, you've seen the dark side of the moon, Eric, surely. Does that look like you're seeing through it?
On clear nights, during a waxing or waning cycle, it is possible to see stars directly through the surface of the moon. And during each new moon, the moon completely disappears from view and remains invisible for that 1 day per month.
Oh look, a photo that shows it's not invisible directly after claiming it's invisible. Also, those stars through the moon, I am pretty sure those are satellites, my dude.
Even members of the Royal Astronomical Society have time and again recorded their confusion at being able to see stars directly through the moon. For example, Sir James South of the Royal Observatory in Kensington wrote that, quote, "On my first looking into the telescope, a star of about the 7th magnitude was some minutes of a degree distant from the moon's dark limb. I saw that its occultation by the moon was inevitable, but the star, instead of disappearing the moment the moon's edge came in contact with it, apparently glided on the moon's dark face, as if it had been seen through a transparent moon, or as if a star were between me and the moon. I have seen a similar apparent projection several times. The cause of this phenomenon is involved in impenetrable mystery."
Well, I have the joys of already looking a bit into the stupid that Eric comes out with, and have done some high-level multi-tab research, and the findings are grim. Though Sir James South is real and published, I can't find his letter to the Times on the 7th of April, as as Dubay references. I've checked several newspaper archives and come up with, well, nothing. As for the moon vanishing, well, on a clear dark night, even during new moon times, you can see the dark patch of the moon hiding the stars, and sometimes even the outline of the moon itself, which, if what Eric says is true, and it's just a light, that doesn't fit at all.
A star occulting a crescent moon has long been a popular symbol of Islam, was the symbol of the Ottoman Empire, is found on the flags of Algeria, Azerbaijan, Libya, Malaysia, Mauritania, Pakistan, Singapore, Tunisia, Turkey, and in the coat of arms of countries from Croatia to Germany, Ireland, Poland, Portugal, Romania,
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru.
Except, here's the thing, Eric. The symbol of Islam does not depict a star in front of the moon and never has. It simply depicts a star and the moon. Some argue that it specifically depicts the moon and the morning star, or Venus, the two brightest objects in the sky, but only at certain times of the day. Earlier Mesopotamian usage of the symbol depicts the objects as separate representations of the deity Sin, the moon, and Ishtar, Venus, and they are only merged together at a later date.
2. Basic physics proves that not only has man never flown to the moon, but that the entire concept of a vacuum of space is impossible. NASA and modern astronomy claim that the Earth's atmosphere spins perfectly along with the Earth up to an indeterminate height where it allegedly meets the vacuum of space. Anyone who has punctured an aerosol canister knows, however, that a positive pressure system adjacent to a negative pressure system must have a solid barrier separating them, or else they will equilibrate.
That's a beautiful image, Eric, as it demonstrates your lack of understanding perfectly. That non-vacuum you depict doesn't exist. There is a pressure gradient. There is no vacuum next to sea level pressure. The pressure decreases with altitude until its effects on aerodynamic drag are negligible. This low pressure environment we call space. It's not a vacuum at all. A perfect vacuum is, in fact, theoretically impossible.
Furthermore, at ground level, this spinning atmosphere supposedly travels around 1,000 miles per hour and increases in speed with altitude, so that by 250 miles high, where they claim the International Space Station orbits, the atmosphere and everything in it are allegedly traveling a ridiculous 17,500 miles per hour, the speed of a bullet.
Are you fucking serious? Eric thinks the reason the ISS travels the speed that it does is because of its altitude? That things that high just automatically start moving that speed? No, dude, that's called orbital insertion. That's the result of flying up and sideways at the same time until you're falling indefinitely over the edge of the Earth.
All right, we have stage separation confirmed. The first stage beginning its flight back. The second stage, being powered by that single Merlin 1D vacuum engine, has ignited and is now carrying Bob and Doug.
Continuing to check in with Bob and Doug as they are on a nominal trajectory.
Also the point where Bob and Doug are experiencing their highest G-force. We're seeing the counter tick up to right about 4.8.
A suborbital craft will travel to over 300,000 feet well into space, and at its maximum altitude, its speed will be, very briefly, exactly 0.
All right.
This means the astronauts in their rockets were traveling faster than a speeding bullet when finally they popped out of the Earth's spinning, pressurized atmosphere and into the non-spinning, non-pressurized, non-atmosphere of the vacuum of space.
This is the level of understanding the king of the flat earthers has. He thinks you pop out of the atmosphere when you go to space. No, as I said, the air gets thinner until it's basically not there anymore, and on a Saturn V flight, the astronauts were at that point, called the Kármán line, well before the second stage is finished firing. Getting out of the atmosphere isn't the hard part. It's pushing the craft sideways until it's going to stay there that is.
Even if they could somehow survive such a transition, once in the supposed vacuum of space, it would be impossible to continue steering, because all propulsion systems require the air in the atmosphere to push against. In a vacuum, there is no such counterforce, so all propulsion, rather than sending the rocket forward, would instead send it spinning wildly and randomly out of control.
No, it wouldn't. You see, Eric, you have two different ways to orient yourself in space, actually. One requires no propulsion at all. It's called a reaction wheel. When the vehicle launches, the reaction wheel is already spinning, providing the vehicle with stored angular momentum. The vehicle can then be oriented in any direction by briefly slowing or stopping the wheel's movement. However, for translational force, i.e. moving from one place to another, the craft uses propulsion, though this doesn't spin it about randomly. That's why RCS blocks are shaped like crosses. You fire them in combination to get the direction you want. Newton's third law. They don't need a medium to push against. It's all in the combustion chamber, baby.
In recent years, NASA has attempted damage control regarding this issue by now claiming that the moon is actually still within the Earth's atmosphere. But this doesn't change the fact that they stood by this impossible claim for decades.
The moon's in the Earth's atmosphere. Fuck my life. Why do flatards do this? Ew, NASA says this, and I don't like it, so I'm not going to believe it. But then they said this, and I think that this proves everything, so I'm going to believe that bit. It's like, fuck my life, shut up. The moon being in the Earth's atmosphere is a bit like France being in the Sahara. Just because some sand from there blows onto a mountain, I mean, technically that sand's come from the Sahara, but it doesn't mean that France is in the Sahara. Jesus, it's all about little bits that blow there, and technically that's still part of our atmosphere. Just no flatards.
Not to mention, this very small amount of atmospheric particles that make their way to the moon, called the geocorona, has been theorized for centuries and known about since the Apollo missions.
3. The amount of radiation claimed to exist in space, especially through the so-called Van Allen belt, was far too strong for the astronauts' flimsy suits. Starting at an altitude of 1,000 miles up to approximately 15,000 miles, NASA claims there exists a deadly band of radiation that would kill or seriously injure anyone passing through in a matter of minutes.
What's a flat earther's favourite fruit? A cherry! Because there's no other reason they keep picking them all the time. It's a stupid argument, and one even Alan himself has called nonsense.
Indeed he has. I love the childlike image of radiation that exists in a flat earther's mind, like it's some kind of deadly green gas that instantly kills you, like in the old Command & Conquer games.
Units lost. Building.
Not to mention, my real problem with the radiation argument is, how can you say NASA says there's deadly radiation, therefore it's a lie when NASA says they went to the moon? It's sort of like saying, I know the president is lying because this one time he said he was lying. You can't pick and choose when to take a source at its word.
One Russian study stated that the amount of radiation present on the moon would require astronauts to be clothed in 4 feet of lead in order to avoid instant death. John Malden, a NASA physicist, said they would need at least 2 meters of thick shielding around them at all times. Yet we see them on film bouncing around the moon in their 2-inch thin suits.
Dubay loves to cite things without citing them. I couldn't find this one Russian study, and since he didn't name it, I conclude that it doesn't exist.
As for Dr. John, that quote was in regards to interstellar travel, not going to the moon. It's on page 266 of his book, titled Prospects for Interstellar Travel.
Even James Van Allen himself continued to state until his death in 2006 that there was no way humans could survive the 90-minute journey through and another 90-minute journey back through the radiation belt without being completely encased in thick lead shielding.
That is a complete lie. Thank you, Barman, for this lovely copy of a letter with Van Allen's own handwriting on it, confirming the words of a previous and now famous letter, both of which state explicitly that the Van Allen radiation belts do not pose an impassable risk to the Apollo missions. That is what he said all of his life.
4. Temperatures on the moon supposedly range from 279 degrees below zero during the nighttime, which is far colder than even Antarctica's coldest winter, and up to 243 degrees above zero at lunar midday, which is hotter than boiling water. NASA claims their special suits were fitted with both heating and cooling systems, but nothing which could come close to withstanding these incredible temperatures.
Sorry, I'm back. I needed more rum. What are we doing? Heat. Oh, God. Right, I'll put it in, like, things a flat earther can understand. Put your hand in an oven. It's warm, but you're not going to burn quickly. Now go touch the side of the oven. What, you don't want to? Why? Because it's fecking hot? Just this heat, convection, radiation, not the same sort of things, sciencey. Yeah, and it's important to understand the basic sort of principles of that when you're considering low atmosphere environments such as the moon. Give me more rum, please.
Since Barman's a little indisposed, I'll take over and also use small words so Dubay understands. Temperature is not the same as heat. Heat is the measure of energy of a specific particle, but temperature refers to the average energy of all the particles in a system. And here's the thing, in space, there are very few particles, and they are very far apart. Therefore, the temperature of space doesn't have a very significant effect on the heat in space. Barman's example is good, but I also like to say, sitting in a sauna at 75 degrees Celsius is calming and relaxing, but sitting in a hot tub at 75 degrees Celsius is uncomfortable and dangerous. Water is thicker than air, and space is thinner than either.
The suits were also supposedly pressurized to keep the vacuum non-pressure of space from bursting their blood vessels, but they clearly have deep creases and wrinkles all over.
Yeah, they sure do, on the outer layer. The inner layer is the one that's pressurized. You can see the details of that layer here being worn for a test by Apollo 16 astronaut Charlie Duke. The outer layer seen here worn by Ron Evans of Apollo 17 was made of fireproof and abrasion-resistant materials designed to provide thermal insulation and protect from the razor-sharp lunar regolith.
Astronauts in true pressurized suits would look like the Michelin Man, bubbling out and very inflexible.
Kinda like this.
Also, it is impossible for the Kodak film in their cameras to have survived these extreme temperatures without melting or freezing.
No, it's not. Look, I did exactly as much work to prove that as you did. How you doing, Barman?
Can't watch moon landings anymore.
Well, he's checked out.
5. In images from Apollo 11, Buzz Aldrin can be seen wearing different color gloves and different length boots in pictures that were supposedly taken within minutes of each other. For example, in photo AS11-40-5873, Aldrin is wearing high boots and dark gray gloves. But just 2 pictures later, in AS11-40-5875, he has changed into smaller boots and white gloves.
Gee, Eric, how can you tell? Which fucking pixel are his gloves? This is why you're such a trash can, dude. You just regurgitate memes you found on the internet that were already copy-pasted 400 times so they've lost all their resolution.
Do I look like I know what a JPEG is? I just want a picture.
You're discussing photos that were taken on film in extremely high resolution, and this is what you show us? It's almost like you're trying to hide how garbage your claims are. Because when we actually pull up the full images you referenced, his gloves are in fact the same color. They might look slightly different due to the fact that in one he's facing away from the sun, and in the other he's facing towards it.
6. None of the Apollo missions brought any extra studio lighting with them on the lunar lander, so the sun should be the only light source on the moon, and in all pictures taken there. In this case, the light should only come from one direction, and all shadows should be cast in the opposite direction. However, in dozens of official NASA photos, there are shadows being cast in up to 3 directions simultaneously, often at up to 90-degree angles, which can only be the result of multiple light sources not present on the moon. For example, in Apollo 14 photo AS 1468-9486, the shadow of the lunar lander in the background is being cast at a drastically different angle from the rocks.
Oh my god, shut up. No, nothing is inconsistent. It's literally just an optical illusion created by uneven terrain and a lack of visual reference points. Hey look, are these fucking trees in a studio, Eric? Barman, are you still checked out?
Oh, it's all good. I've had a transfusion. And by transfusion, I mean I had a shot of Jaeger. That sort of woke me up again. Right, where are we on? Multiple lights. Oh my god. Multiple magical lights that only cast one shadow. That's magic, really, isn't it? I'd love a flat earth to show me how more than one light source shining on an object can cast only one shadow. Oh, damn flatards. Considering how much they say perspective, they really have no idea what they actually mean. I'm gonna get more rum.
7. Many pictures purportedly showing the sun, as viewed from the moon, are clearly just studio spotlights, and not the sun. Apollo 12 photo AS 1246-6765, for example, after computer enhancements, reveals a large light bulb in the center of the sun. After being thoroughly dissected by many researchers, NASA actually removed the high-resolution version of this image from their Apollo gallery.
No, it isn't. It's right here where I downloaded it from. And that's not a light bulb, it's a lens flare, as others actually documented using high-resolution copies and not the trash JPEGs that you use.
Do I look like I know what a JPEG is?
8. Several Apollo images show a defined separation line where the ground meets with what can only be a studio backdrop. If they were actually filming on the moon, the ground would seamlessly meet the background, leaving no such dividing line. Furthermore, when analyzed side by side, dozens of images reveal that NASA reused the same backdrops time and again on what are alleged to be completely different areas of the moon.
No dude, those are called hills or crater edges. There's lots of those on the moon. Notice how he didn't show any of the many images that completely lack these clearly defined backdrops? I wonder why. As for the quote reused backdrops, that's just a matter of moving the camera slightly. Eric says they're completely different locations on the moon, but they're all from the same mission, and they're both pointed at a hill that you can't tell the size of or distance to. Walk 20 feet to the left, and the lander is gone, but the hill is still there. Very simple.
9. Computer enhancements of many NASA images reveal photo manipulation and evidence of studio trickery. For example, as the Apollo 17 lunar lander lifts off, photo AS17-151-23201 shows a clear shadow being cast on the ceiling of the studio. Similarly, Apollo 14 image AS14-64-9089, when yellow and blue are subtracted from the chroma scale, shows what can only be studio lighting reflecting off a black background.
Hang on, I'm still downloading the full resolution version of the first image that he referenced. It's definitely not the lander lifting off, because the descent stage with the landing legs are still attached. That would be the LEM photographed leaving the CSM for the lunar surface. So this is what happens when you try to prove things about photos that are a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. My enhancements of the original image don't show those shadows. What now, Yoga Boy?
10. Computer enhancements done on images of the Earth taken from the moon reveal clear photo trickery. By gradually removing the hues comprising black from the backgrounds, a bright rectangular artifact appears around the Earth, proving it to be a composite image.
Yeah, I already did a whole video on this when Rob Skiba claimed the same thing. It's actually the same thing as before. Low-quality images show those artifacts and originals don't. That's it. Anything to add, Barman?
Well, it looks like he's just basically ripping off Bart I Got Punched in the Face by Buzz Aldrin Cibrel.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief and a thief and a thief.
And if that's the case, then yeah, it's a prat. It's been covered. It's been done. And it was just shown that Sibrel was a little liar when it came to those bits. So I don't hold Dubay in any more esteem than I held him. So yeah, maybe if Dubay had put in proper HD images rather than just saying, oh look, here's the codes. No, you're trying to do it. Put the full images on there, not some low-ass quality janky shite that I could get better quality out of a fecking Etch-a-Sketcher with.
Yeah, that about sums it up. You can find just about anything odd in a low-quality photo.
Comparing low-quality images is a bit like drinking cheap booze. Though it still gets you drunk, it's just not quite right and you know something's not there.
11. In the original Apollo 16 photo, AS16-107-174-46, there is a rock with a letter C clearly engraved into it, as well as another C drawn into the dirt next to it. This is characteristic of fake stage rocks on a stage setup, where the set designer demarcates prop positions, and of course not something that would ever be found on the moon. After being exposed for this, NASA doctored the two C's out of their official version of the photo, but copies of the original photo are still available online.
Hang on, we need to break out Firth logic. So, NASA spent millions of dollars building fake rockets that work, doing fake training, and building fake landers, but left a C on a rock and no one noticed. Yeah, because that makes more sense than an artifact or a hair on a bit of film or something like that. Obviously.
And here's the beautiful thing, right? It really was a hair on the film, and it was a conspiracy theorist who found it. First of all, the idea is absurd. The letter C for a set littered with hundreds of rocks, meaning you only have 26 labels to work with, a set decorator who didn't notice that two reference letters were visible to the camera, the photographer who didn't notice, and then all the people who developed, selected, and distributed the photo also didn't notice. And then, when a conspiracy theorist did notice and asked NASA for better copies he could study, they sent them. However, the original copies did not contain the letters. When the guy asked what happened, NASA looked into it and discovered that one of their reference prints, but not the film prints, had a hair on it. You can even tell it's a hair when you really look up close. Furthermore, the second C on the ground is still visible, except it's clearly just a coincidence made by shadows.
12. In several bits of video footage from the Apollo missions, there is evidence of the astronauts using wires to achieve a more weightless appearance. During Apollo 14, there are many occasions where light reflects off the wires attached to their backpacks, making them momentarily become visible.
No, those are not wires, that's light reflecting off the antenna on their backpack. Stunt wires don't reflect much light because they're made of filament not dissimilar from fishing line, specifically because they don't reflect light. I know what stunt wires look like when they become visible on film. How do I know? I'm a Godzilla fan.
He's mean.
You can see his wires!
And during the Apollo 16 mission, when one of the astronauts falls over, he is quickly jerked back up in an impossibly unnatural manner.
Why would he fall over if he was being lifted on wires all the time? That just doesn't make sense. I mean, does Dubay even think before opening his ass?
Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to, barman.
Fuck my life, you can't tell me this isn't shit.
You've got me there.
13. One of the more obvious video anomalies is how several Apollo missions show American flags flapping around in the non-existent space wind. The moon is supposed to have no atmosphere, and so the flags should have remained perfectly still, but can often be seen moving quite boisterously.
Oh my god, so the giant soundstage they built also had giant fans in. Or maybe it was just something more simple, you know, the lack of atmosphere providing no resistance that keeps the flag moving. Which sounds more reasonable to you?
It's actually even simpler than that. It's their hands. The second they take their hands off the flag and it settles into place, it doesn't budge. Watch.
It's there. See if you can pull that end off a little bit. Tighten that end up a little. It won't go in.
Another interesting video anomaly is discovered by playing NASA's Apollo footage at double speed, then watching the astronauts walking, running, jumping, or cruising around in their little dune buggy.
Hang on. So is it on wires or is it half speed? If it's on wires, then why does it need to be half speed? And if it's at half speed, why do they do wires and then why can I smell toast?
Without the speed adjustment, there is a quote-unquote low-gravity illusion, as the astronauts seem to float, drift, and glide slowly and smoothly along. But once they are seen at 2 times speed, it becomes clear that they are in quote-unquote normal gravity, walking, running, jumping, and cruising at normal speeds. NASA simply reduced the play speed by 50% in post-production to achieve the desired effect.
See, that's how you know Dubay has no fucking idea. If you want slow motion, you don't reduce the playback speed in post-production. That just makes it look choppy, because you filmed at 24 frames a second, so you only have those 24 frames to work with. If you want to achieve slow motion, you film at a higher frame rate, and then slow that footage down in post-production to 24 frames a second. I wouldn't expect Dubay to understand such a simple apparent contradiction as filming at high speed to achieve slow motion.
15. Another glaring mistake is that none of NASA's images or videos show stars in the background as they should. Just complete blackness, likely because exact star maps, as they should appear from the moon, would be nearly impossible to fake accurately.
I've had this conversation with the crazy lady who comes in the pub. Hi Hannah. She watches the videos obviously. And I'll say the same to Dubay as I do to her. Go take a picture of the stars on your phone while standing under a street lamp. You can't, because the light's too bright that all you see is black behind. That's funny, isn't it?
I'll use my 2 favorite photos of the moon for reference here. As someone once said to me, when there's a bright shiny rock in the way, you can't see stars. When there isn't, you can. Low shutter time, no stars, and clear moon. Long shutter time, stars, but the moon washes everything out. Photography 101.
16. Any sovereign-minded, critically thinking adult that honestly examines NASA image AS11 405922 of the Apollo 11 lunar lander, supposedly on the moon, will see a pathetic 1969 attempt at creating high-tech looking equipment using flimsy construction paper, gold foil.
I've covered this so many times that I simply refuse to again.
You and I have both covered this before, and I'm sure the original again was one of de Balzac's. Skip.
17. Apollo 11 image AS11 405926 shows a close-up of the footpads of the lunar lander without a speck of dust on them and without a burn print or crater under its 10,000-pound thrusters, as if the LEM was just gently set down in place by an overhead crane.
I'm sure he's just repeating one of his earlier debunked videos at this point. Just wake me up if he says anything interesting. or stupid? Actually, no, just interesting.
I have covered this before, but this time I'd like to add this image of the engine nozzle of the LEM on Apollo 15. It's bent, because their landing was a little rough, and it kinked inward slightly. Gently placed down by a crane, huh?
18. During the Apollo 11 mission, Richard Nixon made a historic phone call from Washington, D.C. to Neil Armstrong on the Moon, showing both men live on split-screen TV. AT&T Archives states that the call, quote, went from the Oval Office in Washington, D.C. to Houston, where it was routed into space via mission control through the capsule communicator. Even with today's far superior telecommunications technology, and at far shorter distances, there is a necessary delay, at least a few seconds in both directions. Yet when Nixon and Armstrong spoke, there was no discernible delay whatsoever.
Oh, sorry, I thought I heard something really stupid. 2 seconds. Now, fuck my life, he didn't just say that, did he? Well, at least we know one thing. Dubay does no research at all.
Yeah, so those AT&T archives that Dubay quoted? Here's a few quick clips from that exact video.
The President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you, over. That would be an honor.
And one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
Splashdown should be on Thursday, 1250 miles southwest of the Pacific.
You were saying?
19. Another solid proof of NASA's lies came with examination of the many supposed moon rocks given to museums the world over by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Shortly after Apollo 11, private investigator Paul Jacobs reported asking the U.S. Department of Geology head whether he had examined the moon rocks and if he could verify their authenticity, to which the geologist simply laughed and insinuated that people high in the U.S. government knew all about the cover-up.
At least we know he's not trying anymore and he's just doing this for the attention. Though what mindless, crazy person gets this far through a Dubay video is beyond me. How does his videos have likes? I'd love to know the retention time on his videos. If it's anything more than 25 seconds, I'd be fucking shocked.
This is indeed another prat, and I don't have the energy to deal with it. Just look it up, guys. One rock, not given by an astronaut, and left unattended to for decades, and then was given to a man who was mostly blind and deaf, turned out to be fake. No, I'm not making that up, that's what happened. There's plenty of other rocks in that same museum that are verified lunar regolith, so who cares? His last point is about the Apollo 11 lost tapes, which, again, I refuse to address. I've had enough. I've done this too many times. Fuck you, Dubay. I'm out. Thanks for coming, barman.
Well, it's over. Yay! Let's go back to the pub.
If you enjoy this content, consider hitting the subscribe button. If you really enjoy this content, consider donating on Patreon, becoming a member, buying some of my books on Amazon, or buying some of my merch. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.